Hello, everyone, and welcome to December's session of the Straight Path. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Mark Steele here. He has competed in contests and he has completed his presentation mastery path. And he is going to be explaining his experiences with that. I know this is going to be a great session, informative and amazing. And at this time, I would like to ask Mark Steele and to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda. And hello, fellow Toastmasters and any guests that may be watching as well. I really appreciate the opportunity to tell you about my experience going through the presentation mastery path. Before I do that, I want you to think about a time where you felt invincible. Maybe it was in Toastmasters and you had practiced really hard to prepare for a speech. And then it came time for you to deliver that speech in front of your club and you nailed it just the way that you want. Or maybe it was something at work or some other personal accomplishment where you just felt invincible. Well, we want to have you feel that way each and every time you get up to speak. That's one of the primary benefits of being a Toastmaster. And that's why the presentation mastery path is a fantastic way for you to work your way through the different projects that ultimately will help you be a more confident and effective speaker. So let's spend a little time walking through what my experience was in presentation mastery, what I learned from it, how I went through the various projects, as well as what I feel was the primary benefit, how I'm using it today now that I've finished up the path. As Belinda said, my name is Mark Steele. I'm a member of Woodridge number 983, as well as Windy City Professional Speakers number 5283. When I was going through my path selection, there were, as you well know, there were 11 different paths to choose from, but I quickly landed on presentation mastery. The reason why I went to presentation mastery, or I was drawn to it, it's really focused on helping you be a more confident and effective public speaker, just as I said. Oh, anyone that wants to feel more confident, feel invincible when they get up in front of others, regardless of whether you ever plan to be a professional speaker or not. But if you want to be more confident at your club, if you want to be more confident in meetings, if you want to explore new opportunities in your career, perhaps go for some jobs that right now may seem more challenging for you, you're not sure how you do in the interview process, then presentation mastery is a great stepping stone to help you feel more confident anytime you are speaking to others. It'll also help you build a better connection with your audience. We'll talk about the various projects that are specifically focused on helping you understand your audience's style, you understand their mannerisms, and actually even be able to deal with challenges that may be popping up in your audience and how you can effectively get around some of those challenges. The presentation mastery path also spends some time helping you crafting your speeches, what goes into a good speech, and certainly then how do you translate that into a more confident delivery. And then finally, really just in general, feeling more confident at your club and in career or maybe community situations. So that is why I chose presentation mastery. In my own life, I was in the corporate world for many years. And about 3 years ago, I left to focus on being a professional speaker as well as a sales consultant. So now I routinely meet with others and help them amplify their message and their presentation skills. So for me, it was almost a no-brainer for me to select presentation mastery. But again, regardless of whether you ever want to speak professionally or not, I encourage you to take a strong look at presentation mastery if you just want to really feel more confident when speaking in front of others. The that as you know, if you've done any research on the paths, you know that there are 5 key areas of focus. You see them on the left-hand side of the slide here. The 5 key areas of focus for any of the paths. And of those 5, I will point out that the public speaking, the interpersonal communication, confidence, as I mentioned, and then to a small extent, management. Those were the key traits that presentation mastery focuses on. So if those 3 key traits and a little bit of management, because you do need to manage your projects, manage your time effectively when executing those projects and delivering those speeches. There are opportunities to work in group situations and lead groups as well. Oh, if primarily you're looking for a focus on public speaking, interpersonal communication, and building your confidence, then presentation mastery is a great fit for you. Now, the last thing we'll do before I actually step through and talk specifically about what some of my experiences were uh, going through presentation mastery, I just wanted to touch base on the various projects, the various levels and the various projects, and we'll actually see this in action when I get into base camp in just a few moments. As you undoubtedly, or you should know by now, especially if you've been a Toastmaster for a little bit, or if you're new to Toastmasters, every path is made up of 5 different levels, and each level has certain projects that you complete as part of those levels. And then once you complete those projects, you then move on to the next level and the next level and the next level. And as you can see it laid out, that there are some required projects that you'll go through. And then in a few moments, when we walk through some of the elective, that means that you'll get a chance to decide. You'll have a list of projects that you can choose from, and you can choose the minimum amount of elective projects. Or the great thing about the pathway system is you could do all of the elective projects if you so desired. And in fact, you could even come back to them later on if you finish your path and then want to come back and say, hey, there were some really interesting projects in there that I didn't complete as part of finishing the path the first time. You're always welcome to come back and do those elective projects later on. So these are some of the key requirements as well as the electives. Well, now that I've kind of laid it out in written form, let's get into the pathways, the base camp system, and actually take a look at the presentation mastery path. And I'll use that to actually relate on the various projects that I went through and what my experiences were there. What I am going to do, if the technical wizards are with me, it looks like it worked effectively there. I'll probably need to zoom in just a little bit so you can actually see the web page clearly here. But hopefully you recognize toastmasters.org, and in the second tab from your toastmasters.org is the Pathways tab. If you hover over the Pathways tab, you have the chance to go to Basecamp, and when you click on that, you'll land on this landing page where you just select Go to Basecamp. If this is your first time if you haven't selected a path by now, then you'll I'll take just a moment if you have not, you may want to stop at this first box here. I went straight to the middle box, which is Go to Basecamp, but you may choose to go to your path selection, because obviously maybe you're trying to decide which path is right for you. And what you will do is you can look at all of the path options. And now I'll zoom in so you can see the screen just a little bit clearly here. So you'll see that you can view all of the path options, and this tells you a little bit about every one of the paths and helps you decide which one is for you. So if you've gone through, you've looked at the other ones, you've decided presentation mastery is your path, then go ahead and select that one and continue. And now you can jump to pathways. All right. And I will zoom back out, and let's get into pathways, or let's get into Basecamp so that we can actually walk through the presentation mastery. Here is your landing page, and what we'll do is, more likely than not, you want to take a look at your paths and learning. Of course, there's different tutorials and resources for you to learn more about the pathway systems. Anytime you do a speech and it gets evaluated, you can upload your evaluations and access those later on. But we're really concerned about pathways and learning. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and you'll see it brings me to any paths that I have chosen. And for me, you'll see that I am part of the Pathways Mentor Program, as well as the Presentation Mastery. And just as Valinda said, I've actually completed the Presentation Mastery, but there's one little step left to do to just mark it finally complete. And that's actually why it still shows up in the list for me, is because it's not, if I had completed it, it would actually no longer show up in this list. But you'll see that I'm only 92%. That's because we just have to hit the submit button, and it would be complete. Oh, if this is your first time inside any one of the paths, you'll see that every path, as we said, is broken down level 1, level 2, 3, 4, and 5. Each one builds on the other one. Of course, you're going to start at level 1. You're going to work your way to level 5. It's up to you how quickly you progress through each one of those levels. And as you get to level 3, level 4, and level 5, it's up to you how many elective projects you take on. So let's start with level 1. For any path, if you're not familiar with this, for any path, level 1 and level 2 are exactly the same. They each have an icebreaker. They have you focus on improving your evaluations, as well as being able to receive evaluations and make changes based on that. It has you researching content for your speeches. And so level 1, level 2 will be the same no matter what. And I'm not going to go through each one of these, nor will I explain, of course, as you move through, You're going to click on the launch button. It will start a new window for that particular project in your browser. And that's how you walk through the various steps or you learn about the particular project. Will give you the information. There may be some things that you need to study a little bit, but ultimately, every project ends with you delivering a speech. Surprise, surprise. This is Toastmasters. Of course, it's going to encourage you to deliver a speech. And so each one of the projects, you'll learn various things, and then there will be a speech based on what you learned or based on what research you did. So we won't walk through level 1, level 2, because those were the same. I will touch upon, for those of you that have been in Toastmasters for quite some time, I was actually using the old education system. I've been a Toastmaster for a little over 3.5 years, or not quite 3.5 years, but I had originally started off in the education system, or the old legacy education system. But if you've been a Toastmaster for 5, 10, 20 years, you may be hesitant. Maybe you look at the pathways, the level 1, you see an icebreaker and you say, no way am I giving an icebreaker. I've been going to Toastmasters for 25 years. I'm not going to give an icebreaker. I encourage you to not let the fact that you're starting over, if you will, be any type of barrier. First and foremost, make any speech work for you. You don't necessarily have to start all over and say, hi, my name is Mark, and this is my icebreaker. Make it work for you. Turn it into something that you enjoy talking about, just something that your club might not know about you, or just something to challenge yourself. And same thing about evaluation. Try to do an evaluation, find things that you haven't typically focused on before. So it can be, don't be scared off by the fact that you're starting over, because it's just a new way to challenge yourself and refresh the reason why you came to Toastmasters in the first place. But let's jump to level 3 in presentation mastery, because that's really where it starts to differentiate itself from the other paths. You will see that the required project is persuasive speaking. And the help file there, it focuses on helping you develop and support your viewpoint and pick the most appropriate persuasive speech in order to do that. So for this project, it outlined as you walk through the project, it talks to you about or it explains to you the various types of persuasive speaking. And for me, I have a sales background. And so I decided to focus on using this speech to stretch myself and try to persuade my audience into buying a product, a fictitious product. And there are various ways in which you could take this speech. But for me, I used it as an opportunity to not just do something that I was comfortable with, but find a new way of representing the product that I was trying to sell. But persuasive is really just focused on helping you take somewhat your viewpoint and try to encourage other people to take on that viewpoint, or at least better understand that viewpoint. And so, again, as with all things pathways, there's a lot of flexibility. You decide what you ultimately want to do to persuasive, but it's really around trying to convey your viewpoint in an effective way to perhaps change somebody's mind, or at least get them thinking. Then with the elective projects, you'll see you only need to choose 2 of them, but there are actually, I believe, 13 different speeches that you can choose from. And you just need to pick the 2 or all 13, whatever you decide, or any combination therein. You'll see such things as deliver social speeches using presentation software. So if you want to become more comfortable using Microsoft PowerPoint or Keynote, or even some of the newer applications like Prezi or even Zoom would qualify. And so this is, again, it's a way for you to try to take on some new skills that you are not as comfortable with. I'll skip over the couple that I did, but using visual aids. So not just PowerPoint, but perhaps images or props or things that are meaningful for you, focusing on the positive, inspiring your audience. And so there's quite a few different projects for you to choose from, understanding vocal variety. And of course, being Toastmasters, we hear an awful lot about vocal variety. I really, I looked into this, and it's not an area that I typically have a challenge with. So I didn't do that particular one. But if you are often receiving the feedback that uh, that you're encouraged to get more vocal variety, or that was great, but it sounded like it was the same tone from start to finish, then understanding vocal variety would be a wonderful speech for you to look at. And then finally, at the bottom here, know your sense of humor. So if you're looking to add more humor to your topics or to your speeches, if it, again, if that's not an area that you're usually comfortable with, then there's a great project for you to be able to test yourself by adding more humor to your projects. The two that I did as part of my presentation mastery was number one, connect with storytelling. And what I really enjoyed about this is I love storytelling. I really want to be the best storyteller that I can be. And this project actually helped me learn more about the different types of storytelling and the key components as part of storytelling. And so, by such things as you see here about varying your pace, about the different, what makes a good story, what are details that should be included and shouldn't be included. And so when I did the speech as part of this, I really focused, it actually helped me develop a speech that I later used in the international speech competition. It became the foundation for something that a story that I continued to develop and deliver, and made it all the way to the district level with the speech or with the story that I first started to tell as part of my project. Oh, it I found it extremely effective. If you want to add more stories to the various programs that you speak on, or you want to become more comfortable telling stories as part of Toastmasters or part of your career, then that is a great speech for you to look at. And then certainly I finished up my level 3 with connecting with your audience. And this is, just as the name implies, this focuses on the different types of audiences, the different types of personalities that you may find, and more importantly, different techniques for you to connect with your audience, such as using people's names, or being able to ask questions and interact with your audience. So for me, I this is was great at helping me, always reminding me that I should stop and take time to ask questions, not just deliver a 7 or 10 or 15-minute speech. I should make sure that I'm always doing various things to draw my audience in and engage them, especially with a longer program. If you're only doing 5-minute speeches, then there's not as much opportunity. You still want to always connect with your audience, but especially if you're giving a 10 to 15 or 20-minute or longer speech, you want to make sure you're finding various ways to stop, check in with your audience, ask them questions, make sure that they're still on that journey that you're trying to take them on. And this was a great project to practice those skills. Now, moving on to level 4, let's look at, and look, well, I guess they were none too happy about me spending so much time in pathways. Let's jump back in real quick. Hopefully, there we go. I'll, well, hmm, gotta love live presentations. Hopefully, this will get me back in. Let me try refreshing one last. So level 4, the required project, as this is coming back up, I'll tell you a little bit about the required project. The required project was managing a difficult audience. And as the name implies, the project talked about different ways in which you could interact with people in a way that didn't further upset them. So if an audience member is being uncooperative, or they're speaking during your speech, or something to that effect, they're being combative or saying you don't know what you're talking about. This project was helpful in understanding different things that you could be doing in order to counteract with that. I may jump over to, we'll try one more time. Not sure if something. And so managing a difficult audience was the required project as part of level 4. Let's see if we have any more success getting in. Good. So now, yay. You just keep trying, keep talking. So this was an example of how to manage a difficult audience. My audience was this web browser, and all you have to do is you just keep talking, you keep coaxing. I probably spoke too soon. It's not, it's still not wanting to cooperate. Made some project, we made some progress. Okay, so now I will, you're out there, keep your fingers crossed, every click, every click. So there's the required. Now let's take a look at the elective projects. Create a podcast, building a social media presence. So level 4 was really all around getting you closer to actually doing this, potentially for pay, or for at least starting to spread the word now that you're somebody that's available for speaking. Again, regardless of whether you want to get paid or not paid, you may want to start telling the world about different things that you talk about, or things that you are passionate about. And that's what level 4 is all about. So you'll see create a podcast, building a social media presence, blogging, managing online meetings, and we're not getting much practice at that nowadays. So you already passed that one. I know that. Managing a Q&A session, question and answer, public relations, and managing projects successfully. For me, I chose create a podcast and to the Q&A session. For the podcast, just as the name implied, if you've always had an interest in podcasting, you wanted to know a little bit more, this is a great project for you. I actually did create a podcast, and I had started it even before I got here. So it was fun to be able to get up and talk about my experiences in starting my podcast and what I learned along the way. Even if you don't start a podcast, if it's something that you've learned about, then you can still do your speech around what it would take to do a podcast. Or if you did a podcast, here's what you would talk about. So again, if it's something that you have an interest in. And then lastly, the Q&A, the answering a Q&A session, just as the name implies, I set up a little panel discussion in my club using several other members. And I told them beforehand, a few other members, what topic it is that I would be discussing, and asked them to come up with some questions, as well as I took unexpected questions, unprepared questions from other members of my club. And this just gave me an opportunity to not only be able to think on my feet and be able to respond to those questions, but also just be able to be comfortable in interacting with the audience and handling a panel type discussion like that. So I found that very beneficial and a lot of fun. If you would like to be a part of panel discussions, then that is a good one for you to look at. And then lastly, the level 5 is prepare to speak professionally. And as you might expect, that really is around having you think more about what it is that your message would be. What would your topic? Do you want to talk about leadership? Do you want to talk about human resources? Do you want to talk about health and wellness? And then maybe even set some goals for yourself. Are you going to start to reach out to folks in the community? Are you going to talk to other Toastmasters Club, whatever it may be? And then there are 5 elective projects as part of level 5. You only need to do one of them. You choose which one. And for me, I chose the lessons learned. So just talk about my collective experience in moving all the way through the path. But I could have done more work with moderating a panel, ethical leadership, high performance leadership. So if you're not familiar with those in the Toastmaster world, maybe it's running a speech contest or helping set up an event of some sort for your club, and then leading your volunteer organization. Maybe you're a part of some other organization and you want to step into a volunteer board position or become more active in your community, and that project is really focused on helping you do that. So all in all, that was my experience in walking through presentation mastery. And let me finish with, I will, let's see. Oh, I zipped past it. Oh, it worked. So all in all, the key outcomes for me, I just felt like I was a more polished speaker. It gave me a more well-rounded representation of the different speaking styles, different things that I can expect from my audience. Help me feel more confident when speaking to executives. So if you're looking for leadership, then this is a great path to take on. It certainly helped me with my sales presentation, helped me in my own business now. And finally, because I did want to strive to be a more confident and professional speaker, this was a great path. And I've said it 27 times, one last time, it doesn't matter whether you want to be professional or not. It will certainly help all of your presentations be more polished and professional, even if you never get paid to do them. Oh, with that, I think we have some time for some questions, if there are any. And if they're not any, that means I did a really good job.
Yeah. Really good job, Mark. I enjoyed your presentation. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have a quick question. How long does it take you to finish this pass in general?
again, it's probably really up to you. It depends on how often you want to be giving speeches. I think I counted it up, and there's something 15 or 16 speeches as the minimum to get to level 5, give or take. And it's really up to you how quickly you want to push your way through that. I was fairly well motivated, and I moved through it. I was doing a speech almost every club meeting. So I was getting a couple speeches done every month. There's probably a few that I skipped there. So I think six months or so, but again, that was fairly aggressive. But I certainly have heard of folks that visit other clubs and give speeches there, and those would count as well. So I know people have gotten paths done in, in an entire path done in a couple of months if you were so inclined to do so.
In plus 6 months is fast paced.
It's really at your, I don't ever want to scare anyone of saying that they have to be doing speeches every meeting. It's just like the traditional program. You make it what you want it to be, and what your comfort level is. It certainly has to fit towards your lifestyle, your busy life as well. So it's however you want to move yourself through.
Question.
Yes, Carol.
Can you talk a little bit about podcasts? How long did it take you to develop one as part
Sure.
of?
Yeah, thank you for asking, Carol. I did quite a bit of research and planning before I actually started any recording or anything like that. And so I had the idea for a little while. I probably did 4 or 5 months of watching YouTube videos, listening to a lot of podcasts, writing down different show ideas that I might have before I even started to reach out to people that I might want to interview. And so probably about 4 or 5 months before I started to record my first episode. And then I recorded probably about 8 or 9 episodes before I even released the first one. And part of that is because you want to practice a little bit. But when you launch your podcast, more than likely you'll want to release about 4 episodes all at the same time, because you're going to tell your world, everyone in your community, friends and family, all about it. And people are going to love it. And so they'll want to listen to more than one episode. So the recommendation is release 4 or 5 on the first day, and then do it weekly or whatever, again, fits your schedule, but maybe once a week or thereafter, once every 2 weeks at the most.
So in other words, you learned how to set it up, how to release it, what to call it, that type. Did you talk to anyone within the Toastmasters chain?
There really weren't. Yeah, I started a couple years ago, and I wasn't familiar with anyone else in Toastmasters directly that was doing one. I started on YouTube and then started listening to a lot of other podcasters. I know that there, even locally in District 30, that there now are other podcasters. And if I had known then what I know now, I certainly would have reached out to some of the local folks, and even Toastmasters themselves. They have a podcast, so there are lots of different resources now. I was combination of trying to figure it out on my own, as well as listening to podcasts about podcasting or watching videos about podcasting, and there's a lot of trial and error too. You have to not be afraid to kind of learn a little bit as you go along.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate
you
it.
Bet. Other questions? Well, with that, I hope everyone got a really good understanding of what's included or what's part of the program as presentation mastery. If you are looking to be a more confident and effective speaker, take a close look at it. You will undoubtedly become more effective as a speaker by going through that. And I wish you the best of luck. I will turn things back over to you, Valinda.
Thank you so much, Mark. That was a phenomenal presentation. Thank you so much for walking us through your experiences with presentation mastery. I definitely appreciate it, and all of District 30 appreciates it as well. This video will be posted to the District 30 webpage, most likely, and the YouTube page as well. I want to thank everyone else for coming and attending the session. I hope everyone was able to understand presentation mastery a lot more. I know that I was able to do that. And with that, I would like to say goodnight to everyone. And once again, thank you to Mark for being such a great presenter and giving us that information. I know it's going to be helpful for a lot of our members. So good night, everyone. And once again, thank you.